let's go live. We're going live now. And we are live on YouTube. Okay, welcome to those of you who are joining us on YouTube. A very warm welcome to you. Let me switch off the technology so they don't. You can tell us where you're calling in from, where you're joining us from in the world. Say hello. And welcome to those of you in the Zoom room as well. I'm seeing some familiar faces in the Zoom. Nice to have you. Hello. We'll be starting in just a minute and a half. In the meantime, those of you in YouTube, say hello, say where you're calling in from. Jane, where are you today?
I am in Menorca.
You are, aren't you? Is it nice there?
It is gorgeous. Oh, it's so beautiful.
Although the UK was getting some nice hot weather as well.
Very warm here.
So do those of you in the Zoom room rename yourself and let us know where you're calling in from. I see Munich. Hello, Munich. Hello, USA, NYC. Yay.
Hi, Sylvia.
Thank you for joining again. All right, we're on the hour, so I'll go ahead and hang on. There we go. We'll go ahead and start to record. So hello and welcome to this session on how the menstrual cycle relates to intimacy. We do have Jane Dancey with us. I'm super glad to have Jane, and hopefully you will be too when you get to see what she has to say. Jane is an embodiment coach and somatic yoga teacher. I'm Virginia. I'll be tech hosting on the live stream and also on the Zoom. So message me for any issues. You might want to use headphones to ensure privacy, and also if there are children around, you may wish to shelter them from whatever is being said. If you're in the Zoom room with us, that means you're part of our Embodiment Dojo. It means you've purchased a course with us before or the relationship course that's coming up. And feel free to have your cameras on if you're walking, if you're sitting, if you're stretching, if you're eating. Jane and I would still love to see some faces here in the Zoom. For those of you in the live stream, we can't see you, but you can paste your comments in the chat and ask any questions there, and I'll be relating them to Jane so she can see them. She can see what you want to know. This is an interesting subject. This whole week is on relationships. Please, it's free. So think of somebody that you think would benefit from this, somebody who would love to hear more discussions on topics like this, and do share this. I'll paste the link where you can share it. We want as many people to benefit from this. We're giving away a lot of free material this week. If you're like me, I've done a lot of coaching. I know all the theory, and then somebody like somebody close to me. It doesn't have to be a partner, it can be a family member. When we get into a tough spot, I throw it all out the window, and what's missing usually is the practice, and change takes time. And that's why we even have a relationship course at the end of this, which will take you over an 8-week period. And you can really dive deeper on some of the subjects that we can't possibly touch on in a week. And you can really incorporate these learnings into your actual life. Let me share a quick video about the course right now before we get started, so you have an idea what that's about.
Ever found it hard to say what you're really feeling in one of your relationships? Is it difficult to say no or to ask for what you really want? Well, you're not alone.
Regardless of your current relationship setup or dynamic, this might be interesting to you if you want to improve your skills and your ability to relate with taking more self-responsibility and showing up in an empowered way.
When we start showing up authentically, being in touch with what we really want, and find the confidence to communicate it, it can transform the way we are with each other.
Relationships are at the core of everything we do. Everything in our lives is relational. Whether we're relating to a stranger, relating to our partners, it's all about relationships.
This is for you if you've ever struggled with saying what you really want or desire, communicating with your partner. This is for you if you want to learn to assert your boundaries in a clearer, more loving way.
It's about authentic, full expression and becoming confident in really dropping more into the essence of who you are instead of trying to be something or someone that another might like.
The learning takes place in your body as well as in your mind, and it's super accessible for everyone. On the course, we'll teach you practical embodied exercises for improving the way you communicate, for getting in touch with your authentic desires, and for bringing more creativity and aliveness into all your interactions.
We want to give you the tools to work with conflict and maybe reshape it so that it can be a tool for growth rather than detrimental to your relationships.
I've seen firsthand how these simple tools can transform people's relationships from the social to the sexual. This training is simple and embodied. It's not about theory. It's about you and your sensations and your relationship to intimacy.
Whether you're in a relationship or not, who you're in relationship with, whatever your gender, your sexual orientation, if you want to have more fulfilling relationships, then this is for you.
So if you want to learn how to bring more playfulness into your connection, if you want to learn structures for exploring physical intimacy, and if you want to learn how to bring beautiful boundaries to empower your relationship, join me and Christina Dorr on this 8-week journey. Learn to fully show up for yourself in every area of your life.
Okay, so that was a little bit more on the course. We'll talk about that at the end as well, if you've got questions about it. But for now, I just wanted to mention that there are replays available, and you can only get them if you register in the link that I'll be posting there in the comments. The replays will be available all weekend, so if you've missed a session or if you like the session and want to watch it again, do register to be emailed those replays. And without further ado, Jane, take it away.
Thank you, Virginia. Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be with you all here in the Zoom room, and also everyone who's on the live stream. So what we are exploring today is how the feminine cycles can influence, impact intimacy in relationships. And when Virginia was doing her introduction, it made me think of this saying that I remember reading years ago, is that the relationships are the arena where all our stuff arises, right? It's like the playground of all our little gremlins come up and bite us. And so within this session, what we're going to be doing is bringing curiosity and inquiry to how the feminine cycles can impact, influence, and play out in intimate relationships. What gifts they can bring, but also how they can slip us up, the shadow side. And there's something, the bigger picture of this that is very, very dear to my heart is that for the longest time, the feminine life cycles have been pushed to one side, put into the shadow, not spoken about, perhaps even ridiculed, and not understood. So when there is the possibility to bring awareness to them and bring them into the into relationship, that is a double whammy. It's so good for those of us who are female in female bodies, but it's also good for everyone to understand this, because it's kind of like how we were all created in the first place. So it's super powerful and important. So just to set the container for this session, I would really love you to bring a quality of curiosity with you today, and a bit of self-compassion. So seeing if you can keep judgment to one side, and also to remember that whatever I offer, whatever I say is a suggestion. It's a map, it's not the terrain. So that, because when talking about cycles, especially the feminine cycles, the menstrual cycle, each one of you will be experiencing it in a different way. Some of you might still be experiencing menstrual cycle, some of you might not. And regardless of that, we all experience these things in a very different way. So everything is a suggestion, and I really want you to really see how it plays out for you. So this is a co-creation that we are doing today. So you're really going to work out what is useful for you and what is true for you. And I'm going to also ask you if you have some paper and a pen. We're going to go through the cycle of the inner seasons, and within each one I'm going to give you a moment just to pause and reflect and make some notes if you would like to, so that everything is an invitation. There's nothing that you have to do. So really doing what you want to do. So when bringing in awareness like this, it's first of all, awareness is for yourself, yeah, to create more connection into yourself, to self-knowledge, self-understanding. That's so super important for relationships, right? And then the next bit is the in relationship with the other. So bringing that awareness into the relationship. And then the third bit is the container of the relationship. So you have yourself, your knowledge, you have the knowledge that you create in between you, and then that creates a solid container of a relationship, which ideally gives you more resources and a firmer foundation in which to navigate the ups and downs of everyday life. So journeying through the wheel of the menstrual cycle and the feminine stages of life, rites of passage, and I'm also going to link it into the stages of a relationship. Now, these are my ideas, and they're also ideas that I've read of other people. And you might agree with them, they might hold truth for you, and they might not, and that's absolutely fine. First of all, it'd be really useful to hear if any of you still cycling through your menstrual cycle. Okay, and if you want to put in the chat, and also an invitation to put your camera on if you would like to. It's really nice to see some faces when I'm facilitating, so I can see how things are landing with you as individuals. So the feminine, the menstrual cycle, and the rites of passage are stages of life, which would be like, I'm using archetypes. So like from maiden to menopause, crone and beyond. How they influence your energy, your desires, your needs, and how to bring this into your relationship. So it's not just an idea that you're reading, but actually how it actually is something that you can take away with you right now. So tracking your cycle, for those of you who are bleeding, is a fantastic practice to create greater self-awareness. And it's also an amazing practice of self-care. Noticing the shifts in energy, emotions, and like I said, the needs and desires. They will go up and they will go down. And also how your body changes through these cycles, whether it's through the menstrual cycle or through its stages of life. If you think back to what your body was like in your early 20s to how your body might be in your late 40s, for those of you who might be in your late 40s, it really changes, and that will really play out in relationships. So, and also it has a real impact on sexual intimacy, like what we might have wanted to pursue in our 20s. Again, very, very different to late 40s. And just to bring some awareness into the actual menstrual cycle and how it can play out in relationships. For those, this is relevant for those who are still bleeding, and also those who are not bleeding. It might give you some awareness on what was going on in previous relationships when you were still bleeding. So there's the estrogen and the progesterone and testosterone are the main hormones that fluctuate up and down. And just to give you an idea how this can make an impact. So estradiol, which is a form of estrogen, what they say in research is that it can increase your sexual appetite and desire. And then what in research, they say that progesterone can suppress it. But actually also there's a lot more to progesterone. Progesterone is like the comfort hormone. I like to think of them as what might be the accelerator and the brake. If any of you are aware of Emily Nagoski's work around Come As You Are and how women approach orgasm and sexuality, we have these brakes and accelerators. And I like to make that connection to how they take us forward and might take us back. And we'll explore this through the cycle. So, like I said at the top, this is, I'm using like an archetypal cycle. Yeah, so you will have your version. This is not prescriptive. And it's just a way for you to explore. Nothing can be prescriptive when it comes to a female body, because we're constantly fluctuating, and we all fluctuate slightly differently. So prescriptive whatever is not that helpful. The other things that influence our feminine cycles are our character, history, personal history, our preferences, and also lifestyle practices, self-care. And also if one already practices menstrual cycle awareness, that actually has a profound effect on the cycle. Also really influenced by age and stage of life. So whether one is in the spring of life compared to the autumn, the menopause, perimenopause, very different ways of going through life and relationships. I'm going to talk you through the 4 seasons, the inner seasons, and I'm going to invite movement through each one, so that it's not just a cognitive thing that we're doing today, but so you can bring your body into it and see how your body responds to the seasons in a way of giving you a little bit more insight of like if your body knows it or it's a little bit more unknown. And if you have any questions at any point, put them in the chat. Virginia will alert me to them if I don't see them. If it's relevant, I'll answer them, or I will wait until the end. There will be time to take questions at the end. And as I said, between each season, there will be a pause so that there's a little bit of time for percolation, a bit of time for me to get my breath. Okay, are we all ready to start the journey? So we're starting with spring, but the beginnings of spring, and those of you in the Northern Hemisphere and those who experience seasons will get a more of a flavour of this, yeah? The beginning of spring comes from the end of winter. So I'm going to invite you to lie down if you would like to, or if you would like to come into a more sort of end of winter place wherever you're sitting. So quite a quiet place. That tentative time between just the ending of winter and the beginning of spring. Like, ooh, is it going to happen? And this spring links to the within the menstrual cycle, it links to day 6 to 11. Winter, which is the bleed, starts from day 1, but there's a particular reason why I wanted to start with spring. If any of this if it makes you go into your head, just let it go, and I can take you can ask questions. But this is like day 6 to 11. It's that time when you come out of the bleed and you start to move out into the world again. And it's also linked to the rites of passage and the stage of life that is the maiden, the young woman tentatively stepping towards, moving through puberty and stepping towards womanhood. And it's this rising wave of energy. And around this energy, there is very much an innocence, a tenderness, a freshness to it. It's quite a vitality of like those first bits of spring sunshine, that first time where you can actually go out without a coat. There's also a playfulness to it. There's a bit of excitement as new growth starts to come out into the world, and discovery. So this part of the menstrual cycle is the reawakening and coming back out into the world slowly. And so I'm going to invite you to bring a little bit of movement to this, some spring type movement of maybe just fluttering through your fingertips and your toes, just like you are reawakening. You've been in hibernation and you are just beginning to reawaken, and it's like maybe then you start to open up your eyes and you look around and think, ooh, wow, look at that, look at this. And I link this to the first stage of a relationship, the courtship, the flirtating, when two people start to realize there is an attraction, there's excitement, there's a frisson. And this is the spring of the cycle coming out. This innocence, this playfulness. And what's interesting about spring is that it's a new start. It's that time of thinking, oh, this could be possible. This surging energy, this beginning to experience enthusiasm. Sexual energy starts to rise here. Starting to notice attractiveness in others, attractiveness in the world, in nature around. This effervescent joy and lightness of spring. It's a great time within a relationship to try new things, new ways of being. So it's the first stage of a relationship, of like looking at each other and thinking, fluttering eyelashes, butterflies in the belly. But it's also a really lovely energy to bring to an established relationship, the relationship that has gone through the full cycle and is just sort of motoring on, and maybe that freshness has been lost, and maybe things have got a bit dull, there's boredom has set in. So it's a time when you can bring that spring energy to start to try a few new things, new ways of being playful with your partner, experimenting. And of course, Christina's done a whole session on playfulness, so that would be a really useful one to go back to for this spring. And if you want another way to think about this, think back to your maiden days, your teenage days, those days when things were really exciting, that you might see another person and get really fancy them. In the UK, we use the word, we really fancy them. And it's like so exciting. So like in the last years of school, like I would wait to see a certain boy. And the thing to remember with spring is that it can be so easily forgotten, spring, that energy. It can be bypassed. Or people can rush straight ahead to summer. So that lovely lightness, in just the same way that with teenagers, they can miss a part of their childhood because there's that sexualization of girls and they get pushed to the next stage too quickly and they don't have this full blossoming. And this is a blossoming time. And the other shadow side to spring is that someone might go from one relationship spring to another relationship spring, really exciting, then it starts to fizzle out, move to another one, really exciting, and it's easy to bounce from relationship to relationship. I don't know whether that might be, any of you might be able to relate to that. I know I've done that in the past. So I'm going to just pause there for a moment and give you a chance just to take some notes, journal if you want, or do some doodles of like, what is spring telling you? What does spring tell you? And as you do that, I will just say that on a hormonal level within the menstrual cycle, that estrogen and testosterone are starting to rise, and that gives that lifts the energy, the confidence, and the capacity to be flirty. Yeah, because sometimes if we're very wintry, flirtiness is just off the cards. Yeah, it's like not happening. And springtime's like, ooh. And that is the hormones. But if we are not experiencing that through the hormonal gifts of the menstrual cycle, we can still experience it from our relationship to nature and to spring, the season of spring. So having a moment to see what is spring, what are the gifts of spring for yourself? How might spring play out in your relationship? So now we're going to move to summer. So I'm going to invite you to come up out of yourself a little bit more. You might want to stand up, have a stretch, because as you move from spring to summer, you're becoming more out into the world. There's more of an outward focus, and this is connected to the days in the menstrual cycle of 12 to 19, and that goes through the top of the cycle, which is ovulation. And it's connected to the archetype of the mother. It's like middle age. It's the stuff when we're doing loads of things. Yeah, we're fully visible. There's a lot of enthusiasm, optimism. taking charge, high energy. And sexual energy has the capacity to be quite high, yeah, because of going through ovulation. So I'm going to invite you just to move through your space in a summary way. So one of the ways that is a nice way to do it is to come into the being seen pose of EYP, of stretching out your limbs and coming out into the world. So an invitation to move through in a summary kind of way of like out there doing stuff, getting things done, having lots of plates that you're balancing, yeah, spinning lots of plates. It might be that you've got kids, you've got a business, you've got a partner, you've got this, you've got that. It's all happening. It is all happening. And the thing with summer is that it's the part in a relationship. I see it as the part in the relationship that where two people, they've gone through the flirty side and then they start to really merge. They start to go, oh, you're great, so are you, and we're going to merge and we're going to do everything together, and it's really exciting, and that's going on. Within an established relationship, springtime is a really useful time to really reignite sexual intimacy. So it started to rise through spring. In summer, if you are menstrual cycling, you'll have the hormones of ovulation that really ignite the sexual desire. So if you're in a relationship where that has gone down, there is the potential to ignite it in summer. Your hormones are working for you. But remembering that every part of the season of the menstrual cycle, it can happen like that if the other seasons have been well honored. Yeah, if winter wasn't really taken, if spring was sort of rushed through, then it's not going to play out like that so much. And that's when it starts to go into the shadow side of summer, which is the martyrdom of servicing everyone other than yourself. It is the overwhelmed mother. It is the rushing woman. I read this great quote, the rushing woman syndrome, like rushing around, doing things. And what a great way to avoid intimacy. Yeah, I'm too busy, I'm doing this, I've got this to do, I've got to go and do the shopping, then I've got to do this, and I've got to pick up the kids, or whatever the version is for you. So some people can stay overdoing it, and then that has the capacity to move into overwhelm, burnout. So yeah, the fine line between feeling abundant joy and the slippery slope of excess, hedonism and overindulgence, and falling flat on your face. Hormonally, what's going on with summer is that estrogen peaks a few days before ovulation and then plummets straight afterwards. That can create a bit of a up and down, especially if the hormone levels are a bit unstable. And also the testosterone is going up as well, which that is what allows us to go really out into the world. So again, let's have a moment to pause, and I want you to think about, what is your summer like? Whether it's the menstrual cycle, whether it's within your established relationship, or whether it is in your tendency to go through relationships. And what gifts could summer give to your relationship right now, if you're in one, or your next one? What could you take from summer? And maybe what do you need to look out for? And you know, a really good way to think about this is that, are you a more naturally a summery person or a spring type person? Because that will constantly play out. Okay. And so from summer, we've been out in summer, full on, and now what we're going to do is we're going to start to retreat into autumn. So from here, I'm going to invite you to come in as if you are gathering in. It's the harvesting time. So I'm going to, it is really worth doing this through movement. And if you're not too sure what that was like, it's like go back to summer and then come back, coming in, into yourself, coming in, starting to put boundaries up, starting to say no to things, starting to bring the attention back to yourself. And some of you might think, I love summer, I want to stay in summer. And some of you might be thinking, oh, thank God, back to autumn. So play around with that movement while I talk you through autumn. So autumn is within the menstrual cycle, it's days 20 to 26. It is the premenstrual phase. It is the time you're coming down from ovulation and you're moving back towards the bleed. So it's, and it is also linked to perimenopause, that stage in a woman's life when the hormones are starting to fluctuate as she comes to the end of her cycling of the menstrual cycle. So with autumn, really is the time to slow down, taking stock. It is the opportunity to do the life edit and letting go, bringing in self-care, bringing in boundaries. And it's the time where we naturally have the time to speak the truth. And that can be really powerful. It can also go really horribly wrong. Within a relationship, I like to see this as this beginning of the separation and coming back to a bit of individuality. Yeah, so a couple have flirted in spring. Ooh, merged in summer. Oh, you're great, I'm great, everything's great. And then autumn comes and it's like, oh, you're not so great. Ooh, I don't like that. Ugh. Yeah, and this is the time that can be one type of it where you start to realize that you are different and you come into yourself. What can happen is the shadow side of that is like saying, you're wrong, I'm right, I'm off. I'm back to chasing spring, yeah? Much more interesting. It is a time to retain enigma. So if you are in an established relationship and you're completely merged, like that thing of like when people say, call the other person my other half, it is the time to rekindle that interest. And I've got a great quote from Esther Perel, one of my favorite authors on relationships, is moving from, there's the two choices, yeah. So the flaccid safety of permanent coziness or the dynamic safety of fight and makeup. Yeah, so where in summer we can go into that, oh, let's cozy in, let's be all lovely. And then in reality, like if we want the relationship to really have longevity, we have to be able to rupture and repair, just like with how we do with parenting as well. Rupturing and repairing. And this is it's really interesting. As I was preparing for this, I'm on holiday in Menorca. I'm staying in the same hotel that I stayed in 2 years ago with my partner. 2 years ago, it was our first holiday together. We were so in the spring. It was like, oh, lovely, you're great. Now, since that 2 years, we've fully merged. We've moved in together. We're getting married. It's all going on. And my God, autumn is really playing out for us in this holiday, especially because we're in the same place as well. And I can remember what it was like, and we are now here. And that's a make and break. It could be like, oh my God, this is all awful. Or it can be, wow, look at where we are now. Bring the tools in. So we're not going to just completely repair. We can like bring it back together. If you think about that analogy of the Japanese ceramics, yeah, when they break, they they mend them, and they become a lot stronger. So this is autumn. And so really coming back into yourself, because it's so important to not lose sight of yourself. I mean, who here has a tendency to do that? Get into a relationship and it's like, oh, I give up all my hobbies, I just want to be with you, you're wonderful, and give up, you know, don't see friends for ages. So it's that time to come back to yourself, and then bring that back to the relationship, yeah, so that you can really be safe and stable in that coming together, merging and separating. That's such a huge part. Now, going back to the menstrual cycle, what's happening is that progesterone rises, peaks, and then it drops when there's no pregnancy, and that can create the instability. Yeah. So that can be that you go into this quiet place, intuitive, getting kind of getting cozy with yourself, yeah, really starting to bring everything back. That's the hormones are making that happen. If there is imbalances in the hormones in life, as you know, generally a lot of us are like that, what can happen is that can really affect in a negative way energy, mood, and all the symptoms that can come in this phase of the menstrual cycle. And so this is such a really important thing to share with partners. What would it be like to use the seasons as a way of exploring where you are, of like, how do I do desire? How do I want to be touched in autumn compared to summer? And for your partner to be literate in that, and it just being a normal way of connecting. What would that be like? And I think autumn's it really makes me think of that. It brings it back, that what a wonderful gift that would be within a relationship to have that. Because if you have that, then you have 4 varieties of touch, connection, intimacy, and all of sorts throughout the whole of the month. So drawing autumn to a close, the leaves are starting to fall, and having a moment to think about, again, how do you do autumn? How does it play out in your relationship? And what right now, what could autumn give you? Or what's the shadow of autumn that is happening? And then we are moving into winter. And so winter, an invitation to cozy up. So if you want, you can lie on the floor, you can lie on your back with your knees bent, or you can curl up into a little ball. So really cozying in onto yourself. Just to reiterate, autumn was days 20 to 26, the perimenopause in a woman's life. So now we're moving into winter. Within the menstrual cycle, the winter is day 1 to 5. It's the day 1 of the bleed. And it's also connected to the moment of menopause. Menopause being the moment when a woman, a female, has realized that there's been 12 months since the last bleed. Winter is great privacy, detachment, stillness. And it comes with almost like an altered sense of consciousness. It's a wonderful time to practice acceptance, forgiveness, and really receiving. So lying on the ground, just allowing yourself to receive the support from the earth. It is the time for reflection and rest, repair and renewal. And deep, deep surrender. Deep, deep surrender. Now, within with the hormones, what's going on is that estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone are at an all-time low, which can have an increase or a decrease in libido, depending on your relationship to your cycle, and how your body affects libido as well. Some really love that idea of the reduced risk of pregnancy. Can be a real turn on. There's a lot of extra lubrication. But on the other hand, it will be such a turn off, like if you're experiencing fatigue, pain, nausea, and the thought of having penetrative sex with the bloods. Some people just aren't into that. So it can really go both ways. This is the time when you need to stop. Not stopping can create the symptoms, right? The symptoms that can happen in this part of the cycle: anxiety, depression, feeling out of control, acting out. It's a real time to check in with yourself. And I see it as, in the lifetime of a relationship, it's where you've gone through the summer, you've merged, you've separated, you've established yourselves as separate human beings, and then you can rest in that deep sense of belonging with each other. But not actually, it's like being in a space where you can be together and you don't need to have to talk. You're just very comfortable with each other. And you can merge and you can separate. And you can really have this time to rest and repair and create renewal within the relationship. So again, a moment to think. What's your relationship to winter? What could winter be a great gift for you and your relationships? How might it already play out in where you are already? So making any notes that you would like to, as we come to a close of this wheel of the inner seasons. And again, a chance now to think of, like, where do you locate yourself right now within all of this? What might have surprised you? What was new? What was familiar? What did you already know? And what might be the medicine for you right now in your relationship? Okay, and we're going to bring this to a close. So I'm going to invite you to come back up to sitting, and I'm going to take some questions. So Megan has asked, what's the effect of having a non-hormonal coil fitted, which may impact on the energetic cycle? Hormones should be the same, but bleeding is very different. So the things that I've heard about this, that I've read, is that even if it's non-hormonal, a coil can still create a disruption in the hormones. Remembering that our hormones can be disrupted by everything and anything, like just how the lockdowns had a real impact on the way people were cycling through their menstrual cycle, symptoms through perimenopause, because it was affecting hormones. Yeah, stress, anxiety, everything affects it. And of course, if you are on hormonal contraception, then you won't be experiencing the hormones like that, and you will not be ovulating, so you don't get that surge of progesterone. So is there any more questions? And then I'm going to
Yes, there's some questions about the archetypes of winter and autumn.
So winter is the it's the menopause, and that would be the crone. And what was the archetype for autumn is it's perimenopause, and it's what I like to call it the autumn queen. But there's many different ways of saying it. The enchantress, the sorceress. I think you know, archetypes are ways for us to understand things, and it's really useful just to see what really resonates. And so the question, I thought it was interesting. Yeah, I thought. Okay. Any other? I'd really love to hear any insights. Put them in the chat.
Yeah, and for those on YouTube or the live stream, put your takeaways from the session, something you loved. You can share it in the comments, and I'll relate it to Jane here. And it's nice also if your peers see this, because we all learn from each other. And while you take your time to do that, I just want to be mentioned again. I want to mention that replays will be available over this weekend. So for those of you who are over on the live stream of the week, you'll have already registered if you're there. So you will be being emailed those replays. For those of you on the YouTube, you can see the links there to register, and you can receive all the replays of the full week over the weekend, so you can watch them. Remember, this is still open. You can still invite a friend, another person, family member who would benefit from this. So do send them out an invite, because after the weekend, it will be too late. There is the early bird offer for the Empowered Relationships course, because that's where we get to dive deeper. If you're interested in more practice, in more learning, in more actual applications and testing it out for your life, I'm going to share my screen quickly so you can have a look. If I can get my screen up, there we go. So you can have a look at the curriculum here. And it is an 8-week course. And over the 8 weeks, we go through a number of different things. So you can dive deeper and deeper into all of the subjects we're briefly touching upon this week, and really get moving in your body as well, because real change only happens when we do engage the body. There is a lot of good things in here. My favorite one is definitely week 5, which has to do about attractiveness, attraction, and relating. And then all the topics that we kind of touched upon, we really go deeper. There's 3 different packages, and you can see that they're all half price at the moment. You can just have the personal practice one for your own benefit. It's almost 30 hours of learning. You can have the coaches package, which has some more freebies inside, or the full shebang with more than 70 hours of learning and some free stuff there. And these are the prices for them. So you still have time until after the weekend to consider if this is something for you. And if you want to join, there will be live tutorials, but you'll have access to their recordings as well. And if you get the facilitator package, you can also have a one-to-one coaching session with Adam and Christina. So that's exciting. And perhaps also, if you are thinking about getting the course, let me show you what that looks like. for those of you kind of thinking, ah, this may be something for me, but I'm not sure, here is what the course would look like. So you get a dashboard, and for each week, the material is released. This would start on the 2nd of August, but you'll have a chance to have a look before that at some of the material. My computer is slowly loading, so I'll stop the screen share there. But yeah, there's time until after the weekend to make up your mind. In the meantime, bear in mind that the course is for you if you want to improve your relationship quality, if you want more connection, more fulfillment, if you want to learn to express yourself, to have fun and be playful with your partner and all those who you relate with. I wanted to mention that Adam, one of the teachers on the course, is coming up next in 5 hours from now. Adam will be talking about how to ask for what you really want. So those of us who have trouble expressing ourselves or feel we're not heard, that's where Adam's talk comes in. And there we go. That's what the course would look like. So you get a different theme each week. Week 1, you can become more aware of your body, wake up your hands. And for some reason, it's just refusing to scroll. My computer is not having a good relationship with me today. But you get little videos, and then you get the live stuff as well, and you get a community on Facebook. So it's all peer group supported, and you do get the support of the teachers as well. Jane, I want to leave some time to go over your top 3 tips. So if we are to get 1 or 2 or 3 things out of today,
Okay.
what would you leave us with?
Okay, number 1, if you are still bleeding, practice menstrual cycle awareness. It's such a great way of creating self-awareness. If you're not still bleeding, use the inner seasons as a way to connect into what's going on for yourself. And then number 2, notice your personal habitual ways of being within your relationship. Yeah, from the tracking that you've done, notice what you tend to do and what tends to play out in your relationship. And then number 3 is use the seasons and the fluctuations of the seasons as a way to tend your relationship. So like the next season's about the next session's about asking for what you need. I would instantly think summer, autumn. Great seasons to be able to put that into practice. So using this awareness as medicine for your own relationships. Back to you, Virginia. You unmute yourself there.
We still have 5 minutes, so there's some really interesting questions in the chat, but I'm just copying over to you right now, if you can look at that.
Okay.
I'll send a couple through, so if you can answer them as I'm pasting them. There you go.
Okay, so there was a question, Esther Perel's 2 choices. I do love this quote. The flaccid safety of permanent coziness, or the dynamic safety of fight and makeup. Something that perhaps is a useful thing to write and stick on the fridge. And those, okay, for those who are on birth control with no interruption and because of it who don't bleed, that if you're on the hormonal birth control, then you're not getting the same hormonal fluctuations, you're not ovulating. So that does make a difference, but you can still, you won't be having your bleed, but you can still check in to how do I feel? Am I spring, like, am I summer, go getting? Am I autumn coming in, or am I like wintry? And use that as a way to create awareness. And then if you ever decide to come off the hormonal contraception, you will already have something in place, which would be such an amazing gift. Okay, another one. For perimenopause and menopause, do we think about embracing autumn, then winter? Anything you recommend regarding the M word and sources to look into? It's a huge subject, and it's one of the subjects that I work with a lot. Absolutely. So as we go through our menstrual cycle, every time we come into premenstrual, it's like a dipping our toe into perimenopause. And perimenopause is all about starting to say no, coming out of summer and starting to regroup with oneself. Like, what do I need? What are my needs? What are my desires? Saying a big fat no to too much, coming back into self is it's a huge subject. If you look on my website, I've got stuff up there. And if you put a message on Embodiment Unlimited, start a thing, and I can put some resources on that as well. I'm really, really happy to share.
Yeah, I just wrote in the comments that Jane, you're kind of a regular guest teacher and speaker in all of our events. So for those of you who follow Embodiment Unlimited, you can definitely see more of Jane, because she'll be coming back, and she has been in our past events as well. It is coming to the top of the hour, so if you'd like to quickly repeat the 3 things for those of them that didn't catch them.
Okay, number 1 is practice menstrual cycle awareness if you're still bleeding, or checking in with your inner seasons, what's true for you. And you can do it from a day-to-day basis if you're not bleeding. Then notice what personal habitual ways are coming up in your relationship with yourself, and then in relationship with other. And number 3, use the seasons, this seasonal awareness, to tend to your relationship and to almost like medicine, to create expansion and adaptiveness, so that you're not just one way. You can be playful, you can be serious, you can get everything sorted, but you can come back to all the full flavors that ideally that we have in a relationship that keeps it alive. There we are. I hope this has been of interest and of use to some of you. Back to you, Virginia.
Okay, thank you so much, Jane. Thank you, everybody on the YouTube. Thank you on the live stream, on the event page. And yes, feel free to go on the Embodiment Unlimited Facebook page and start a thread with questions. There's a beautiful, epic, vibrant, knowledgeable community there, and I'm sure other people will benefit from it. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Jane. See you in 5 hours for Adam. Take care, everyone.